As a longtime Fallout fan with a terrible memory due to my lack of social interactions growing up, I am fortunate to be able to play games again after a few years with almost no recollection of events. Those 38 words bring us to Point Lookout, a DLC from Fallout 3. Often referred to as challenging, players find themselves surrounded by fog, tribals, and mutations. But what if we felt like spending the better part of a day ripping out our hair by trying to head to this DLC right after getting out of Vault 101? Can you beat Fallout 3 Point Lookout straight out of the vault? Fallout 3 has some scaling mechanics that makes the game more difficult at higher levels. This means that by starting the DLC at level 2, it should be considerably easier than if we were to attempt the same DLC at level 30. Those were my original thoughts going into this challenge. I was completely wrong. To no one's surprise, this is not the first time. The start of this run started like any other. I really tried to make a pregnancy fetish joke here, but I really got stumped on how to pronounce melisophoria. Imagine typing all of that into Reddit at 3 in the morning. After pursuing my daddy kink, I looked at the children's book that told me that I was going to be highly resilient and intelligent. Two things that I would certainly need if I was going to kill half-naked people with aimbot. Nothing too special happens while growing up, outside of the fact that I realize that I can't fight Butch after starting shit, and my own father tells me that he can murder me.
It's okay.
Honey, I brought you into this world. I think you know the rest.
Smile.
After trying to get out of taking the exam, I snagged the bobblehead off the desk and go over to Butch with the walk of a runway model before convincing him that the overseer would be willing to string him up by his own scrotum. Collecting medicine, repair, and small guns for my tag skills, I wake up to Amada telling me that I should get off my ass and get a real job. If I didn't have a moderately respectable job, I would make some sort of joke about my mom telling me the same thing. Walking through the atrium, I snagged the 2 suits of Vault security armor just because I feel like they might be a little bit useful. Spoiler alert, they really weren't. It wasn't long after that I broke out of the vault and put points into repair and small guns, as well as grabbed the Black Widow perk. I did use a command to get me on the boat to Point Lookout. You could flame me for doing this, but honestly it'd be a big waste of our time, because it is a boring walk without being able to loot or kill anything. I've decided that for this run I won't be naked, at least in the game. This does make the game easier to start off with, as I had roughly 100 bolts for my pistol, but these don't last long and I find new weapons relatively quickly. Originally I was going to try to buy a ticket from Tobar, but with Charisma being my dump stat, the ticket was 456 caps. After failing multiple times to pickpocket the ticket off of him, I began to think that I should just add it to my inventory. But after more than 20 attempts, I managed to get him off. Get the ticket off of him. On the ferry end, I see a Ferris wheel looming over the rough-looking docks while fog dances around. Looking over to the right, we can see a mansion and a lighthouse peering over the shore as the waves beat against the rocks. I must say, despite being covered by fog and scary shit, this DLC is hella pretty. I found myself getting lost in the best way possible. Before getting too far, I set my difficulty to very hard because I do hate myself a lot. Pegging is a great time in my opinion, and this run is pretty well as close as it gets without a strap on. While fighting some vicious dogs, I stumbled in the House of Wares. With a robot for security, Panda runs his shop that we visit several times this run. She carries a lot of different types of ammo, as well as some guns native to this DLC. Stepping inside the recruitment building, I kill a few roaches with a baseball bat from the vault. In this building, I do find some lore for one of the quests that I will do later, but I'd rather talk about the room on the other side of the building that has babies with diarrhea so explosive that an explosion literally follows their every fart. I do find some loot in here, but I much prefer seeing everything go whee with them exploding. I just want to mention that no babies were actually harmed in this video. Probably. I found out really quickly that this DLC wasn't going to be a cakewalk. Between traps blowing up almost immediately and the natives not being very friendly, I switched to the tactic of sneaking past everything I could. After sticking to the shore, I arrived at the back of the mansion that Tobar mentioned we saw on the way in. Going inside, I found myself in a gunfight. Fortunately for me, Desmond had my back and did most of the work with the help of his doggos. They did remind me of Cheyenne a little bit, but upon closer inspection, their tails were not nearly as fluffy. I'm going to keep the fights here pretty short for a reason that you'll find out shortly. At a certain point, Desmond leaves my side and I'm forced to fight the tribals on my own. At first, it really isn't that big of a deal because I have over 20 stim packs from the vault still, but I kept pushing as best as I could. Using a mixture of explosives, a sniper rifle that I stole from Desmond, and top secret door voodoo, I actually got pretty far. But there's a scripted event that causes you to fall down in the basement, leaving you trapped until you clear out the next several areas. This is the point that I realized that I couldn't just brute force my way through this DLC, with gear about as tasty as my semen after not touching pineapple for a week. I tried rushing through the next encounters to get back to Desmond, but with no success. I fought for nearly 40 minutes trying to get out of this hellhole, but after all those attempts, I decided to give up. No, you can't, or at least I can't, beat Point Lookout straight out of the vault. I hope you enjoyed my attempt, and have a good one. You guys didn't seriously think I'd give up that easy, right? While I did give up with bum rushing the mansion, I wasn't going to quit just yet. Reloading an older save, I returned to the point in time before I ever stepped foot inside. I go back to the area near the House of Wares and fight some more dogs before visiting the motel. At first I didn't see any doors here and was just going to be on my merry way, but looking a little closer I see a room that isn't boarded up. Inside I find a new objective, one that belonged to a spy. You know we gotta slip a Hydra homie for life in there too. Backtracking to the docks gets me to a series of lockers. Using the key we got from the motel, I find an audio password that leads me to the bank just in town here. Heading over to the bank, I kill a few more roaches and find out that I need to find someone with a dental capsule that has codes to a submarine that we need to blow up. If you aren't following any of this, that's okay. It wasn't until I watched the footage back 5 times before everything clicked. I think. Okay, maybe I still really don't know what's going on here, but the quest marker does, so let's follow that. On the way to the thingy, I find a bridge with some supplies on it. What I saw only when I went to go leave the bridge was people staring at me. Opening fire started a 5-minute firefight, with me doing most of the shooting. These weird footsuckers followed me all the way back to the House of Wares. It was crazy. And hey, if you do have a foot fetish, don't let that previous line let you think that it's weird. Go for it, my guy. I can't really criticize anyone's fetishes, because I get my rocks off on scat porn. If you don't know what this is, I envy you. It is a deep, dark hole that you don't want to fall into. Returning to the bridge, I give the Gluck Gluck 3000 to the last guy. Oddly enough, he was clean-shaven, so it really wasn't too bad of an experience. Find Margaret in her cabin with a still. She wants 6 batteries, 3 yeast, and some of the local plants to make some moonshine. I will help her with a recipe and fix up her still later, but that's just going to wait a little bit. Just outside I find a tracker, a stronger version of the guys that we've fought so far. I fire a few shots into him, but decide to just avoid wasting all of my ammo, to not even make a dent in him, and instead reload to save and find a different path north. I do go back to Panada to sell a few things. I really wish that she was a bit more like Moira in the sense that she had more to say. She really only had shopping and repair abilities, making her about as social as I was as a young child. I got really good at playing with Legos. I was going to say myself, but that wasn't until later, and I really don't feel comfortable making sexual jokes about a younger version of myself. Sorry, pedos. I do judge you unlike feet people. I spent a long time walking and enjoying the atmosphere. It really is a nice change of pace from the orange of Fallout New Vegas. Some feral ghouls actually made me feel good about myself. Up until this point, I hadn't really been an effective killing tool. Who would have guessed that rotten corpses would have been easier to kill than mutated beasts with shotguns? I did finally get to where I was supposed to find the codes, but it was behind a wall with robots shooting this hot sticky stuff all over me. Fighting scrappers wasn't easy, but enough bullets and stems were able to bring down almost anything at this point, as long as there weren't as many as that were in the mansion. Or so I thought. Reapers, another enemy type found in Point Lookout, had a really good weapon, a lever-action rifle. I threw myself at this dude multiple times until I was able to shoot it out of his hands. Sure, I ruined the durability in the process, but after killing him brutally, I was able to head back to the House of Wares to get it repaired. Finally armed with a decent weapon, I strut my stuff and take some B-roll. I still wasn't sure I wanted to risk fighting robots. I mean, who would? They have so many oddly shaped tools. Who knows what they could do with them? Because of my unconfidence, I continued looking around. Heading west of the docks, I stumbled across a refugee camp with several healing supplies and a little more of the lore. I really didn't take the time to figure out what the hell happened here, but it was cool whatever it was. If you guys didn't know, I hate Mirelurks. They are really cool from a game design perspective, but they are just so difficult to kill without a shotgun with a lot of pellets. Want to know what I hate more than Mirelurks? Trackers. I spent roughly 2 minutes killing one dude. It was harder than me after popping a Viagra New Year's Eve at Macy's house. I totally thought our parents were supposed to be out of town, so I popped one on the ride over to get me nice and prepped up for the big event. As it turns out, they weren't going out until after supper. I literally sat there at the dinner table with my 2mm defeater and my tan khakis while her mom brought in the turkey. The way the oil just glistened on that beautiful bird changed something inside of me. So anyways, that's how I knew I was a cytophiliac. I killed a lot of scrappers, too many to show in this video, as each one took about a dozen bullets even with my new gun. That said, it was a great improvement over my 10mm. Hydra homie for life? Somewhere along the way I found the USS Ozymandias. That later led me to find several soil reports for no apparent reason. That's Fallout, folks. Going over by the church that overlooks said boat, I fight some more ghouls. I actually started to feel like I could kill things reasonably well, but I was still taking a lot of damage in the process. I did stop by Plick, but avoided this due to the cap entry fee. At some point, preferably on my actual playthrough of this DLC, I will check out this place because I don't even remember it being here. This mine was my second favorite part of this entire DLC. It had unique traps, told a story full of chaos and loneliness, while also having a dangerous quest that was literally for getting a teddy bear. Kenny slapped, and this is an area that I really hope I remember. Making my way back to the side quest we were working on earlier, I had a much easier time dealing with the enemies outside, but it still took a substantial amount of time, so after a while I found a hole in the wall that I was able to sneak through to get to the morgue. I'm going to kick it in high gear for a second here, so get ready to follow closely. I got the information for the submarine code before dipping through the sewer pipe next to the furnace and starting to make my way towards the submarine itself, killing another tracker, self-destructing the submarine, and making my way to the reward. The motel where we started the quest gives us the location for the loot and the code to get inside. I go inside the greenhouse next to the mansion, enter in the correct sequence, similarly to the Tranquility Lane failsafe, celebrate after realizing that this amount of loot would save the entire run, grab the backwater rifle, the unique lever action rifle, get trapped almost causing me to die, and escape the trap by exiting through the pipe at the top of the room, allowing me to complete the Velvet Curtain quest. I know I flew by that quest there, but honestly, we haven't made hardly any progress in this run. I really need to get somewhere soon, otherwise my non-biological child in Puerto Rico is going to find out that his dad is a sex addict. After getting out of the tube, I saw a few thanks to Panada and Haley, who I've yet to mention yet. So by doing that quest instead of going straight for the mansion, we now have combat armor, a great rifle that uses ammo that we have a substantial amount of, an assault rifle, and several more levels. But why stop, or rather start, there? We still have a few things that we can do to prepare. By that I'm referring to the soil data job. I go around and collect each of the soil canisters, fighting ghouls and radiation sickness along the way. It is kind of weird doing this run without Radchild. I realize now how much I take that free healing for granted. While we run through a few different areas here, I just want to hang out with you guys for a little bit. Call it aftercare if you'd like. How are you doing in life? Are you feeling happy, or are there a few things that you would like to do to become a little happier? How are your personal relationships doing? Not just your romantic ones. I know I've kind of portrayed myself as a little bit crazy, okay, maybe deranged, but if you guys ever want to just talk about your day or need some friendly advice, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you guys and hang out for a bit. Anyways, now that we got all that soapy stuff out of the way, let's rip through this DLC like a sounding rod through a urethra. I returned to Desmond, this time successful in actually being able to help him and his dogs out. I was by no means invincible, but I was able to hold my own. Just before heading up to the second floor, I double checked how many stim packs I had. I shit you not, 69 on the money. I knew at that very moment that we had this run in the metaphorical bag of sexual exploits. Swapping between the shotgun and the Blackwater rifle allowed me to make quick work of these enemies. I still had to dance around the different floors and use the door trick, but really everything went pretty smooth. And then it happened. I fell through the floors again and ended up at the same place that I failed at previously. This time was different. Utilizing some of the gas bombs, a landmine, and the assault rifle allowed me to clean up house of all the tribals. This was actually a really fun experience at this point. I did enough damage and had enough healing, but there was still a risk of dying if I got a little bit too cocky. Reaching level 7, I put points into medicine and grabbed Bloody Mess for some extra damage. After a lot of killing, Desmond suggested I become a tribal. After all, if you can't beat him, join him. I go to the church and basically they tell me if I want to join, I have to do something cool first. So I start making my way to the arrow thingy. On the way there, I killed a few more scrappers. I actually kind of like how goofy these guys are. Makes combat funny when the guy that you just killed screams something about his eyeball. The shotgun is a little slow for my taste, but I think you'd have to kill Desmond to get a combat shotgun, unfortunately. Finishing off my journey into a trippy area, I kill a few boat flies. After fighting my way through a dozen or so mirelurks, I hated this part, by the way, and the crashes didn't help. I went through a hell of a drug trip. Remember earlier when I said that Kenny's mine was my second favorite part? Yeah, this is the first. The bobbleheads, the dead mom, Amada, the sound of a baby crying, and false enemies were really cool, and an experience I implore you to go check out for yourself if you have the ability. Turning to the church, I find Nadine, the daughter of the woman who asked us to find her daughter. Grammatically, that line makes sense, but something seems off about it. She tells me where the big boss dude lives, so I go there and talk to him and a brain, which is the actual leader of the group. Returning to Desmond, I find out that he has a rivalry with Professor Calvert, and that he wants me to place a jamming signal on the Ferris wheel we saw when we came in. Now everything is coming together. Somewhat. Man, I really wish I was intelligent as my Fallout characters are. After doing the deed, No, not that deed, you sick pervert. I kill all the tribals that ambush me and bask in their blood before pursuing my necrophilic fantasy. Returning to Desmond's mansion causes it to blow up. The tribals must have attacked, and he had gotten to utilize his backup plan that he mentioned earlier. I have absolutely no clue what's going on anymore, but I am loving the confidence regardless. Finding this sexy ghoul in the bunker below the rubble of the house, he informs me that the lighthouse is where the big bad guy is at, and that he knew this because he increased the signal when I jammed it. That makes sense to me. Before finishing off this quest, I return to the woman who got her name by someone sitting on the keyboard. The bunker Desmond was in conveniently had 3 yeast and 6 vision batteries, so it wasn't too hard to get it all put together. After the tonic was made, I had 6 moonshine. Was that a good use of my time? No. Did I enjoy doing it? Yes. Meeting up with Desmond at the lighthouse, we travel to the secret bunker below, fight numerous robots that are surprisingly easy to kill, open several doors, and find the professor. I had toyed with killing Desmond here, but honestly, he was a nice guy enough to let me steal everything from his house before it blew up. Well, I guess he's kind of a cool guy. A few shots from the old shoddy, and the glass cracks, allowing me to access the storage closet of goods. This was kind of a letdown when the other loot room was so good, but I guess that's the way that 3 Sims usually work. One person just kind of sits there with a chastity cage on and a thumb up their ass. At least, that's what my ex told me I had to do. Traveling back to the boat to get the hell out of this godforsaken place, I see Nadine. She tells me that Tobar was the one performing the surgery, and that she had him locked up in the engine room. If you are perceptionate and have an insane amount of knowledge, the command that I entered to get to the boat immediately actually brought me inside of the engine room. Oops. I was curious why there were brains in there, but wow. I am naive. Killing Tobar and traveling back into the wasteland, I proved that you can beat Fallout 3's Point Lookout straight out of the vault. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and have a good one.